The house is finally quiet. No one needs anything. No emails demanding answers. No calls waiting to be returned. Just empty time stretching ahead like an unexpected gift. So why does it feel wrong? Why does sitting down feel like stealing? Why does doing nothing feel like everything is falling apart somewhere else? There's this voice that starts whispering the moment stillness arrives. Someone needs something. There's always something that should be getting done. What kind of person just sits? But here's the thing. Feeling guilty for doing nothing isn't about being lazy. It's not about being selfish or broken. It's about something much deeper, something that's been carried so long it feels like it belongs there. What if the guilt isn't really about doing nothing at all? What if it's about something else entirely? Something that's been hiding beneath the surface, waiting to be understood. By the end of this, that weight might finally make sense. And maybe it can finally be set down. The guilt shows up like clockwork. The moment there's stillness, it arrives. This feeling like something important has been forgotten, like someone is being let down just by existing in the quiet. It's never really about being lazy. The people who feel guilty for doing nothing are usually the ones doing everything. The ones everyone calls when something needs handling. The ones who remember birthdays, manage schedules, solve problems that aren't even theirs to solve. And somehow, in all that giving, there's this learned belief the worth comes from usefulness, that love is earned through service, that value is measured by how much can be handled before breaking. So when that rare moment comes to just be, the mind starts racing. What's being forgotten? Who needs attention? What's not getting done? But here's what's really happening. When someone has been running on empty for so long, they forget what full feels like. When all the energy goes toward taking care of everyone else's needs, connection with personal needs gets lost. The guilt isn't protecting anyone from laziness. It's protecting from something scarier. The possibility of discovering that self-kindness might be completely unfamiliar territory. There's a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from never feeling allowed to stop. It's different from physical tiredness. It's the bone-deep weariness of holding breath for years, waiting for permission to exhale. It's knowing exactly how to comfort a friend who's overwhelmed. Knowing the right words, the gentle tone, the way to hold space for someone else's pain. But when it comes to personal struggles, the voice changes. It becomes sharp, demanding, never satisfied. Hours might be spent helping someone else solve a problem, followed by self-criticism for taking 5 minutes to sit in the sun. This is the hidden cost of being the person everyone can count on, learning to count on everyone but oneself. Becoming an expert at everyone else's needs while remaining a stranger to personal ones. The guilt around doing nothing isn't really about rest, it's about identity. If the role isn't being the helpful one, the reliable one, the one who always has it together, then what's left? If problems aren't being solved or crises managed, what's the purpose? These questions feel dangerous because they point to something rarely taught, that worth isn't tied to productivity. That the right to exist, to rest, to take up space doesn't have to be earned. But unlearning this pattern means facing some uncomfortable truths. Like how much of life has been spent trying to be indispensable out of fear of being unwanted. How much energy has gone into making everyone else comfortable while carrying all the discomfort. The inability to rest without guilt often traces back to families or cultures where love felt conditional, where approval came through performance, where being good meant putting everyone else's needs first, where personal feelings seemed less important than keeping the peace. So now, even in an empty house with nowhere to be and nothing urgent to do, the nervous system stays on high alert, still scanning for problems to solve, people to help, ways to prove worthiness of the space being occupied. The tragic irony is that all this giving, all this helping, all this endless availability doesn't actually create more love. It creates more exhaustion, and often more resentment. Because deep down, there's waiting for someone to provide the same care that's constantly given to others. But that person never comes, because it's never asked for. The need is never even acknowledged. Instead, staying busy feels safer. Busy feels valuable. Busy means not having to sit with the uncomfortable possibility that maybe, just maybe, there's been running from something all along. But what if that something isn't scary at all? What if it's just quiet? Learning to rest without guilt reveals something that changes everything. There was never a responsibility to be everything to everyone. The guilt starts to lose its grip when it becomes clear it was never about being lazy or selfish. It was about permission. Permission that seemed like it had to come from someone else, not knowing it could be self-given. Rest without guilt doesn't mean doing nothing forever. It means recognizing that self-care isn't taking away from anyone else. That personal needs matter too. That it's possible to be helpful and generous and kind while still honoring limits. It means learning to tell the difference between genuine care and people-pleasing, between giving from overflow and giving from emptiness, between helping because it feels right and helping out of fear of what happens if the help doesn't come. True rest becomes possible when this truth settles in. Love doesn't have to be earned through usefulness. Worth isn't determined by productivity. It's okay to disappoint people sometimes and still be worthy of care. It's okay to say no without losing value as a person. This doesn't happen overnight. It happens in small moments, choosing to sit for 10 minutes instead of immediately jumping up to do dishes, letting someone else handle their own problem instead of automatically stepping in, asking for help without a detailed explanation of why it's deserved. Each time rest is chosen over guilt, decades of conditioning get rewired. The nervous system learns that safety doesn't require constant productivity. That love doesn't have to be earned over and over again. Somewhere in a quiet house, someone is sitting still. The dishes can wait. The emails can wait. The endless list of things that always need doing can wait. And for the first time in a long time, that feels okay. It's not about being lazy. It's not about being selfish. It's finally being honest about what's needed. And what's needed right now is this: the simple permission to exist without producing anything for anyone. The guilt might still whisper sometimes. Old patterns don't disappear overnight. But now there's a difference between guilt that protects and guilt that controls, between rest that heals and busyness that hides. The understanding grows that taking care of oneself isn't taking away from anyone else. That worth isn't measured by usefulness. That it's possible to be generous and kind and helpful while still honoring the very human need for stillness. Maybe the real question was never, why is there guilt for doing nothing? Maybe it was, why did it ever seem like permission was needed to rest? In the quiet house, there's a smile. Not because everything is figured out, but because the trying to figure it all out at once has finally stopped. Some things can just be, and so can we.